Welcome to the October Virtual Sky Notes for the LAS. We'll have a look at what's in the night sky in the coming weeks. Oops, not one of those, I hope. Right, so we have a view of the whole sky for October. This is mid-month, about 10 p.m. British summertime. And we have, obviously, we can see two bright planets which are in the southwest by now. It's Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter is a lot brighter than Saturn, actually. And then we also have now appearing in the east, Mars, which is coming to opposition this month. A bit more of that in a minute. Overhead, we have the Milky Way, which stretches from the south to southeast to northwest here. And so it's prominent mostly in the Cygnus area. Some very nice star fields there. Do have a look at those if you can, in dark moonless skies particularly. So we're losing some of the summer constellations now because we've now moved into the autumn sky. So now we have Arcturus, the bright star here, which is orange in color, easy to find. You can find it by following the handle of the plow down to the bright star Arcturus. This is in the constellation of Boötes, which to me looks a bit like a traditional kite in shape, with the streamers down here and the diamond-shaped body of the kite here. That's an easy one to spot. Moving across, we have Hercules, which is a prominent constellation, only because it has really a nice collection of stars here, which forms the keystone asterism. Moving across there, we have the Summer Triangle, denoted by the three stars Vega, Deneb, and Altair. These are pretty well the first things you see in the night sky as it gets into twilight, apart from Mars, which will be very bright in the east, of course. Over into the east again, we have the constellation of Pegasus, which is a rather large constellation, denoted by this square, which isn't quite a square, but it looks a little bit like that here. You can see a square of Pegasus. This is a useful signpost constellation, and at this time of the year, one of the constellation signposts is actually to the bright star down here, which is Fomalhaut, in the Southern Fish constellation of Pisces Australis. Obviously, for those of you familiar with the night sky, will know that Andromeda comes off the top corner, and we have the Andromeda Galaxy, which is visible as a misty patch with the naked eye under clear moonless skies. We also have some binocular objects such as Uranus, which is almost naked eye, but it can be detected with a pair of binoculars, and a bit more challenging Neptune here. So we actually have 5 planets in the night sky to look at over the coming month. We move on quickly to the next slide. We're looking due south, a bit more detail. So we have the Milky Way low in this area here, which is Sagittarius. This is the famous teapot asterism, and it does look a bit like a teapot, honest. Here's a spout, here's the handle, and here's the teapot itself. It's sort of tipped up at an angle, with Jupiter and Saturn above the handle here. And Milky Way extends from the spout upwards through this constellation called Scutum, which is a pretty constellation, but is denoted by a very nice star cloud in the Milky Way. And also nearby is the Wild Duck cluster M11. Moving around a little bit, we have the constellation of Capricornus now due south. This is a bit obscure, actually, to look at, but it is easy to spot by this row of stars here. And above the 4th star here, we have the Saturn Nebula, NGC 7009, which is something you can have a quick look at with a telescope. And a bit more challenging, because of its size, is the Helix Nebula. This is a large planetary nebula down here in just above Pisces Australis, on the borders of Aquarius. And actually, it's such a large object; it's about half the size of the full moon as a planetary nebula. It's the nearest planetary nebula to Earth, but at pretty slow surface brightness in the town sky, it would be very difficult. I think in the dark sky, it might be more easily spotted. We move on, looking into the west. We've already mentioned Arcturus and Hercules here. Obviously, Hercules is famous for its M13 globular cluster, which is probably the best example of a globular cluster in the Northern Hemisphere. But a close rival actually is M92, which is easily spotted with a small telescope as well. Okay, we move on a little bit more. Into the north, we have the constellation of the Plough, well, obviously the asterism of the Plough, the constellation of Ursa Major. And you can see Ursa Major extends over a much larger area than you might think. In a dark sky, it's actually stunning. This is very bright. This asterism is very bright. And you can see the forepaws and the hindpaws of the Great Bear here. It's almost like the Great Bear's striding across the northern horizon at this time of the year. It's very low down, and it's walking across the northern horizon there. You can use the two stars, American Dubhe, as pointers to find the pole star here in the constellation of Ursa Minor. Okay. We also have constellations rising in the east now, which are more the autumn constellations of Auriga and Perseus. Of course, Cassiopeia is circumpolar, so it's always visible above the horizon. We look into the east again. We have constellation of Pisces. This is two fishes strung together with a piece of string, apparently. So how that makes, I can't see that myself. But anyway, what we have is a useful guide here is an asterism of stars in a ring called the Circlet, which is very useful for finding Neptune later on. We'll find out about that. Mars is very prominent, the brightest thing in the eastern sky at the moment. Magnitude minus 2.4. Can't miss it. Very, very orange and red in colour. And if we move up, we've got the constellation of Aries here, which is a little bit obscure. Two stars most prominent here, and if you look below those two stars, you come to the planet Uranus. We can actually see the constellation of Cetus down here. This is representing the whale. This is the whale's nostril up here, and this is the tail flutes of the whale. So it's like I'm splashing around on the horizon here, you know, as it were. This is quite a useful feature to find a number of objects in the coming month. As it's autumn, we now start to see the Seven Sisters cluster M45 rising by early evening. A true sign of autumn has arrived, I think. In the month, we have two full moons. The first is on October the 1st, which is the harvest moon, and the second, which is on the 31st, actually is denoted as it's a second full moon in a given month as a blue moon. Nothing to do with the colour, hence the expression once in a blue moon, because it only happens fairly rarely that when the full moon occurs either at the beginning or the end of a month to get it into the calendar month. More information on Mars, Uranus and Neptune are given in the three newsletters you see there. Mars is newsletter 252, Uranus 253, and Neptune in 254. Constellations featured this month, looking a little bit into the south, we're looking at Aquarius, Capricornus, Scutum, Aquila. And so here's a representation from Megastar of most of the objects you can find down to magnitude 10 in these constellations. So that's quite a useful guide if you can look at that on the video and actually have a go at some of these objects in the coming months. M15 is a very nice globular cluster, for example. So is M2. There's quite a few globulars around here, actually, M72 as well. Here's the Saturn Nebula, so NGC 7009, and the helix is down here, which is this one, 7298. You can see some familiar objects over here as well. We have the Wild Duck cluster in this area here. Okay, so this is an area below the square of Pegasus. So there's your marker, there's the square of Pegasus. Here's the circle I mentioned earlier, and using that to find Neptune is quite an easy thing, hopefully next to Phi Aquarii. Right, move on to the next slide, if I can do that. We have a number of published information on some asteroids which are visible in the Pisces area, in the east. There's a couple which are worth mentioning for moderate telescopes, which is Parthenope, which is asteroid 11, and Flora, asteroid 8. They're quite relatively bright. Flora is about 8th magnitude. Parthenope is around about 9.5. There are some more challenging objects as per the Sky at Night article. These are the three I've listed below, and there's a newsletter covering those as well, but they require larger telescopes to find them. We also have a very faint comet 2019 U6 Lemon. Lemon refers to Mount Lemon, the survey observatory which found the object back in 2019. It's past its June perihelion date. It's now fading. It's now about 12th magnitude. I've put it in for reference. If you do want to have a look at it, you need a large telescope to find it, or use some imaging equipment to actually image the comet as a fuzzy comet coma. There is forthcoming some interest in a new comet, which is Comet 2002 M3 Atlas, currently moving up from the southern hemisphere, brightening to about 10.5 magnitude. It will be visible at the end of October, just below Orion, and it's moving northward through Orion in November, and it may get up to around about 8th magnitude. So newsletter 258 will give you all the information you need to find that. Planets this month, we obviously have 5 on display in the evening sky. What you'll notice is that although Mars is at opposition on the 13th, it transits around about midnight, mid-month, obviously, and so that's 1 o'clock our time, BST. So if you've got a good southern horizon, it's well up at about 40 degrees by that time, so it's easily spotted. Nicely positioned in Pisces. Do have a look at that. That's really the key for the month. Really is Mars. Jupiter and Saturn are getting a bit into the evening sky now, into the twilight zone. Neptune and Uranus, you will spot them as non-stellar type objects, distinguished by their colours of green and blue, star-like objects, but no other details visible on those with small telescopes. If you want to find Neptune and Uranus, there's newsletters available for that, as I mentioned before. A quick overview: if you find Phi Aquarii here is Neptune. This is a binocular field of view, so you find that you can spot Neptune quite easily with binoculars. Same with Uranus. It takes a bit more to find Uranus. You find the 2 stars in Aries here. I can find my mouse on it. Aries here. Two binocular fields below that. This is the brightest object in your binocular field. There's nothing else in there that's that bright. 5.7 magnitude. Mars is obviously coming up to opposition this month. Closest approach is on the 6th of October, and opposition on the 13th. It's reaching about 22.7 arc seconds diameter, which is the biggest it will be for something like 15 years. So the next opportunity to get to this kind of size image will be 2035. More on Mars at the next Zoom meeting on the 22nd. Running through the calendar months, we have obviously 2 full moons. The first one on the 1st, moon illusion at moonrise. Mercury is really out of the way. It's actually very poorly placed. It's elongation on the 1st. Venus is located next to Regulus in the morning sky in Leo. There's a Jupiter transit on the 3rd, as we can see there, early evening. We have a 98% waning gibbous moon close to Mars, about a degree away on the 3rd also. Closest Mars gets to Earth, this apparition is around about 61 million kilometers, that's 38.6 million miles, on the 6th of October. There are 2 meteor showers this month. The first one occurs on the 8th, which is the Draconids. it's only about 10 per hour, so it's pretty low rate. And it's troubled by the moon, actually, because the moon interferes. But if you see those leopard flows before the moon rise at about 23:35 BST, you should see something, hopefully. Southern Taurids, even lower, really inconspicuous meteor shower on the 10th. If you want to look for Mare Orientale on the moon, moon's southwestern limb, the best time to look for it is around about the 12th of October. Mars really is key this month, and it reaches opposition on the 13th, as I said. On the 15th, we have a thin waning crescent moon close to Venus in dawn skies. New moon on the 16th. A thin waxing crescent moon, 1.23% visible in twilight on the 17th. There's a bit of interest this month in the Orionid meteor shower. I think the Orion is actually hail from Comet Halley, as it were, the remnants of that meteor trail. So 20 per hour. Favorable conditions. Moon set is about 2200 hours, so if it's late evening into the early hours, you'll be fine. Moon's out of the way. Yeah. I'll put in something of interest for space fanatics, as it were. NASA OSIRIS-REx touchdown sample collection is due to happen on the 20th of October. This is asteroid Bennu. 22nd is actually the next Zoom meeting for the LAS. This will be Mars 2020. That's opposition to Mars plus a bit more on Mars in general, and a bit more on space exploration on Mars as well. A waxing crescent moon on the 22nd, first quarter on the 23rd. One of the asteroids featured this month is Parthenope, which reaches opposition at 9.4 magnitude on the 23rd. If you're looking at the moon this month, then the optimum time to look for crater Clavius is around about the 24th of the month. Of course, 25th is a Sunday. We change the clocks back to GMT. We go back an hour, which means everything moves around. Effectively, we get darker skies in the evening time, but we're losing quite a lot of into the west by that time, and more of the winter skies rising earlier. So it's good times. We have the perihelion date for Comet 2020 M3 Atlas. Reaches perihelion on the 25th also. It's outside the Earth's orbit, so it's visible in our evening sky. Newsletter 258 deals with that. Mercury's out the way at inferior conjunction on the 25th. The second full moon, which is called a blue moon, occurs on the 31st. And the 31st of October, Uranus is at opposition, 5.7 magnitude. Do have a look at that with binoculars. That really concludes my summary for the month. Do have a look at the night sky. Hopefully get some clear evenings, and we'll do it next month. Okay, thank you.